Well, we are very fortunate now to welcome the CEO of Nightdive Studios to the show, Mr. Stephen Kick. Stephen, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. I couldn't be better.
See, we don't often get that kind of answer, so that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Thank you for joining us today. I'm here to pick your brain about all things Nightdive. The first of which I have to ask, how long have you been working with Nightdive and how long have you been its CEO?
Good question. Time just keeps going by so quick. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when Night Dive got started, but it was probably officially around the time that the original System Shock 2 launched on GOG. I think it was Valentine's Day 2012.
Wow.
So looking at 13 years, probably this November,
Hmm.
this February, sometime around there.
Yeah.
And I've been the founder and the CEO, and now I'm actually the studio head now. That's my official title of
Oh,
Night
wow. Okay. I see. I'm going to update several docs at this point. Okay.
Dive.
So since the studio's inception, you've been kind of running the show, and it seems like Night Dive's doing better than ever from this perspective. I know for me, I've got quite a few Night Dive projects on my console and Steam Deck. But when you started way back when in 2002, did you envision you'd be where you guys are now in 2025?
No, absolutely not. Like I said, it was just me. All I wanted to do was get System Shock 2 running again on
Hmm.
PC, and that was my only goal. And once I kind of achieved that and understood that there was a pretty big market for classic PC games specifically, that's what kind of led me to, eventually where we are now. But back then it was like, who can help me get some hacky patches into some of these old PC games just so that they run on, Windows 8 or 10 at the time.
Hmm.
And now, of course, we're a massive studio, at least by comparatively, where we started,
Hmm.
and we release games on every console. And oftentimes, it's games that never had console releases or PC releases or vice versa. So, yeah, if you went back in time and you told me where we are now, I would highly doubt you.
Hmm. Well, I had the privilege of talking to Zazer Acheron a few days ago, and I'm sure that'll be up on the channel sometime around when people watch this one as well. And it was neat to hear his mentality for what Night Dive represented, what it was, what it meant to him, that kind of thing. Obviously, you're the guy that started it, but when you look at what Night Dive means now to the industry, I think of remasters and getting to experience classic games in modern lenses. Is that how you view it, or is it an entirely different thing from your perspective?
It's a little bit of that, and it's also kind of falls upon one of our main philosophical foundations, if you will, and that's that we treat games as art,
Mhm.
and we want to ensure that there's always a way to experience this form of art, and especially the games that kind of paved the way to where we are now. There's a lot of lessons, there's a lot of collective history and experience that the people who developed these games all those years ago can pass on to people who just enjoy games, people who
Mhm.
see them as art, and hopefully future developers who can look at where we came from and hopefully make some informed design decisions or artistic direction or something like that on the projects that they're currently working on, and hopefully learn something.
I have so many questions about those projects because I've seen you guys run the gambit of IP. But in terms of studio philosophy, is the entire studio remote?
It is, and it always has been.
Hmm.
So I was just working out of uh, just a loft, I guess, in Portland
Hmm.
after the release of System Shock. But before then, I had come home from this massive trip through Mexico and Central America, and I was living at my wife's parents' house. Like we were in their spare bedroom.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where it started. And now I live in Vancouver, Washington. This is my office. And Yeah, I'm here 9 to 5 most days, and everybody else is at home, comfortably working, hopefully, from places like Sweden, New Zealand, Texas, just about every corner of the earth. So it's a 24/7 operation at Nightdive.
I was gonna say it certainly that begs the question: are your hours normal? But you did answer that. How big is the studio at this point?
I would say that we're probably close to 50 people.
Hmm.
Um, it's bigger than I ever could have imagined,
Hmm.
but the growth lately has been exponential.
What types of challenges do you run into being a remote studio that is worldwide, a team of 50? Do you guys tend to focus on 1 to 2 projects, or do you have several irons in the fire, like at any given time? How do you manage that?
I would say that at any given time, we've got between maybe 3 and 5 projects going.
Hmm.
And there's enough people now that we've got, Kex Engine Team 1 through 3 essentially working on their respective projects. And then we've got silos of artists, designers, audio people, basically the rest of the disciplines that are covered that can kind of move around to the various projects when they're needed.
Hmm.
And yeah, management is it can be challenging at times, but I would say that since the Atari acquisition, we've been given a lot of help in terms of managing our personnel and our schedule.
Hmm.
So things are definitely a lot smoother now. Um, you'll notice subtle things like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we would have a release and a game wouldn't come out on a platform in time.
Hmm.
And that would be, due to
You
some
made quite the
internal.
side eye, Steven.
It would be, due to some internal issues like, oops, maybe we didn't do cert quick enough on this platform. But now
Mhm.
a lot of those things have been ironed out, and our studios has benefited greatly due to that.
You allude to the Atari acquisition, and so I'll skip ahead a touch. That took place in 2023, is that correct?
Yeah, about 2 years ago. Yeah.
And with an acquisition like that, I mean, in the gaming space, especially on an Xbox centric show, acquisition could mean very different things,
Yeah.
right? For Atari to acquire Nightdive, what does that do in terms of your day to day? Does that bring staff on so you get those ports out on time and get those certs ready to go, or does it? Uh, I don't know what else to ask. Like, what does that do for you guys?
Well, really, what it did was free up our core team to do what they do best, which is making these remasters.
Hmm.
And to the best of our ability as well. Atari has given us a foundation that has offloaded a lot of the business side of Night Dive. So we're talking human resources, legal, marketing, and some social support so that we don't have to kind of spend cycles doing that on our end.
Hmm.
And we can just primarily focus on making the best games that we're capable of.
Hmm.
And they acquired us because they love what we do. So we've never had to worry about them coming in and saying, hey, your audience and what you guys love to do is first person shooters, but we think you should do,
Hmm.
you know, something completely unrelated.
Right.
So we haven't had to worry about that. And really, they've just freed us up. Um, yeah, to just focus on making amazing games.
Night Dive, of course, known for the remasters, and I think in many spaces for the Kex engine itself. You alluded to it also when you say Kex engine team 1, 2, and 3. And I'm cheating a bit because I talked to Zazer Ekron a few days ago.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I really enjoyed. I've been playing the Dark Forces remaster on Steam Deck and on this deep dive of Doom lately to prep for Dark Ages. And
Yeah.
so I've had a lot of time spent with the Kex engine as a consumer and a gamer. But I will tell you right now, Stephen Kick, I don't know what Kex Engine means to you guys. And I will look at other game preservation companies. Digital Eclipse would be a good one, the Eclipse Engine.
Yeah.
I don't know what's different or special about them. So talk to me about Kex, and in layman's terms, explain why it's special, because it clearly is.
Yeah, so Kex is it's interesting. You would think that Kex stood for something Let's start from the beginning. It's KEX, which is Kaiser's EX engine, and Kaiser is our lead developer.
Mhm.
And I found him on his WordPress website a number of years ago. He was working on a Turok source port, and that was kind of our first game that we got the rights to, but didn't know what to do with it. We knew we wanted to re-release it, and our initial goal was, let's just do PC. But when we found Kaiser, we brought him in. The source port that he was building was essentially the Kex engine, like an early version of it, running reverse engineered Turok source code
Mhm.
within it. And so it kind of acts as, and you could probably fact check me with Zazer or whatever he told you. He would know much better than I would. I've just got, again, I have like a layman's idea
Mhm.
of how this amazing piece of technology works. But in essence, it encapsulates the original code and allows us to integrate new renderers, things that will allow the game to run on modern hardware and the different console platforms. And then at the same time, allow us to implement like controller support, um, widescreen support, enable us to build tools so that we can extract art assets and upres them and then put them back into the game.
Mhm.
It's basically an engine that was custom built to do what Nightdive does, which is take old game code,
Mhm.
make it run smooth as silk, improve the graphics, and have it playable on your console of choice. So that's as high level as I can possibly get on that. But if you want to know more technical stuff, you'll have to watch the interview with Zazer.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I like that one. I like that one. I thought one of the cool things, among the many things I found in research and discovery for this interview, was something like Blade Runner. The original source code was lost, but you guys were able to use Kex to essentially reverse engineer it. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, the code was reverse engineered and then it was imported into Kex. So the
I see.
Kex didn't do any of the reverse engineering
I see.
uh, of the code. We had to use specific tools that are kind of built for that.
Hmm.
Yeah, reverse
Gotcha.
engineering is black magic to me.
Yeah. It's wild beyond belief. But one of the things that I thought was neat, at least even in me getting like the facts slightly off on that one, it reminds me so often of what I hear about game preservation not being what it could or should be, especially in the early ages of gaming and 3D gaming, PC gaming. And so game preservation so important at this point. And I mean, listeners of XEP have heard Digital Eclipse talk about this with us. Datimu has been reverse engineering older stuff. Cat appearance on the show. Got to say
Yeah,
it. All
yeah.
right, what's the cat's name? Call it
This is Peaches.
Peaches. There you go. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. You have no idea how happy you made the comment section there. They love a good cat appearance.
There's another one in here. Her name is Zelda, so that tells you anything.
There you go. Yeah, it sure does. Sure does. Um, all right, back on track here. Game preservation. You guys have, I would argue, one of the pillar names in game preservation, alongside the ones I mentioned, Digital Eclipse, Studyemu, and a few others, in terms of letting gamers experience classic games, nostalgic games in modern sensibilities. And sometimes it's what we think we remember.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just bringing the older experience to newer hardware. How important is that to you guys?
I mean, it's the basis of our business of what we do. So, I mean, we would love to do every game, right?
Hmm.
I think every game deserves it. Every game deserves to be played and experienced again in some way.
Hmm.
And to be able to do it to this, let's call it this niche of titles and the genres that we, more or less favor, is a real dream come true because these are the games that I grew up playing, and many of the team members grew up playing as well. So having a hand in, um, the games that more than likely inspired us to become game developers is really important. And I think a key reason why Nightdive titles kind of perform the way that they do is we genuinely care about them. We're passionate about them, and we want to make sure that, you know, the game is better after our work than before, as much as we can do anyways.
I think anybody that investigates Nightdive's catalog will find that you all, it's not just the remasters in the names of the games that people might recognize: Doom, Star Wars Dark Forces, Turok, Quake, but you guys get to work with some of the major players, whether they're currently major players, they have been major players, or they're making returns. Like, I see Acclaim and id Software and Apogee and LucasArts, and those are big deals. I would argue in some ways intimidating, in some ways not. What's the process like for you guys when you want to remake something that's a bigger title versus a smaller one?
Yeah, that's a great question. And a lot of that kind of comes from just the experience that we've had, you know, back in the early days, let's call them, when we wanted to do Turok. You know, that wasn't our first choice. We obviously went to a lot of these bigger companies and said, hey, you've got this tier 1 IP. Can we use it? And they're like, who are you? You know, no. How did you get this number? You know, that kind of thing. And so when we managed to get Turok, it was a franchise that had been more or less completely forgotten. And so it wasn't generating any revenue for its owner. And we made a compelling case that, you know, something is better than nothing. And that's kind of what started it all. And as we started to do bigger and bigger titles, the door started opening towards some of those, you know, opportunities that you mentioned. I think id and Bethesda was probably the catalyst for what Nightdive is now. We approached them with wanting to do the Doom 64 port. I think it was during the development of Doom 2016. And they were just slammed. They were totally busy, couldn't really bat an eye at us. And as they were doing Doom Eternal, they came back to us. And we had a couple more titles under our belt at that point. I think that their confidence level in what we could do was at that stage where they were willing to take a bit of a risk. And what we ended up doing was porting Doom 64 to all platforms, as well as creating some brand new content that kind of linked Doom 64 and Doom Eternal, so that the you know, the cohesion between those two packages made sense when they offered Doom 64 as a pre-order incentive for Doom Eternal. And it was received so well that, you know, the next day we're on the phone, hey, what do you guys want to do next? And that's what led to Quake and Quake 2 and Doom 2. And it's turned into a really fruitful relationship where we get to work on the coolest games ever, you know, with one of the coolest, most storied developers ever.
Was it really that quick of a turnaround to go from Doom 64? They get the result, they're like, yeah, we want more?
Oh yeah. Yeah. The reviews started coming in for Doom 64, and it was a massive hit. And I think they realized that there was some magic there, and it opened up kind of the catalog, so to speak.
And you guys helped, like, they greenlit you to make the content to connect their universes in a canon sense, of course.
Yeah, I think that might be the very first like original content that Nightdive ever created for an existing game. There may have been something, you know, in Turok 1, Sam changed a lot of the levels to just be better. So I guess you consider that original content, but not like this. This is almost like a, you know, an official expansion to some degree.
Which opens the door for the work you guys did with them in terms of the Quake remaster and bringing in the whole new episode, I think it was called, but for Quake, wasn't it not?
Yes, with Machine Games.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, that has to feel like pressure, even though that's kind of the goal, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're making a brand new expansion to one of the greatest games of all time. I mean,
Hmm.
easy, right?
Right. Well, so let me ask you this, because one of the things that I had just in researching your guys' catalog, because obviously Turok is in there, Shadow Man, Quake, Doom. You clearly have to have design bibles of some sort. Is the design bible per project, or do you have certain pillars that Night Dive requires of their projects to be made?
That's another really good question because every game is so dramatically different from
Hmm.
one another. And with some of the games, the partners are more hands off. So you mentioned Shadow Man. When we first did that game, it was just a re-release. It was
Hmm.
an early one, and as we got more and more um, competent in our abilities and confident, we went back to Valiant, said, "Hey, we want to bring this to console. There's a lot of things that are long-standing issues that were called out not only in original reviews but also on the Steam reviews."
Hmm.
And so they more or less said, "Yeah, go for it. Do what you want, um, and we'll be here to support you." And so that led us to start working with some of the original developers of the game, because along with the old reviews, there was a lot of, "Hey, this is a great game, but this particular aspect hasn't aged so well. Boy, would I really love to have widescreen. Why don't the UI elements scale with the resolution that I've selected? Oh yeah, I also heard that there were some cut levels that never
Hmm.
made it into the final product. Like, what happened to that?" And so we went to, again, the original developers, and then they had some of the original design documents and level layouts of what they had intended. And in collaboration with them, we actually built them out and finished the game that they had intended to ship, back in the 90s.
Hmm.
Um, so there were existing design docs there. But if you take something like The Thing, um, we had some hardcore fans of the game on staff who already kind of had a bullet list of things that they wanted to do and fix and improve.
Hmm.
And so every project kind of starts off with, let's all play the game, give our feedback, and then talk about, how we can make this game a night dive game.
Hmm.
How can we improve the mechanics? What's going to feel really good on a PS5 controller versus a PS2 controller, that the game originally shipped on, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's all kind of a big fact finding ordeal at the beginning, and then we kind of pare it down into, these are our goals that we want to achieve with this particular game, and if we do it right, like you kind of alluded to earlier, a fan of the original might not even notice a difference,
Hmm.
because it's the game that they remember playing and
Hmm.
not the one that they actually played.
The So something that occurs to me as you're talking, and I know it's just kind of been on my mind here and there as I look at Night Dive projects. To make Star Wars Dark Forces, that remaster, which I'm thoroughly enjoying on my Steam Deck, that experience like a handheld version is so cool to me just because I played it so long ago.
Yeah.
But you're having to talk to LucasArts and Disney
Hmm.
about Star Wars. That to me sounds like it would be a very nerve-wracking, may not be the right word, but like I feel like they would have lots of rules for you
Hmm.
in order to mess with and work with their universe. Did you find that is the case? Is my assumption on point or a little bit off? What's it like working with Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, that kind of stuff?
There was definitely some initial anxiety.
Hmm.
It was a new partner that we hadn't previously worked with, and you know, attached to one of the largest, most influential companies in the world. So, I mean, on top of that, too, the IP being probably one of the most recognizable across the planet for the last 50 years or so. And so we kind of approached it with that reverence, right?
Hmm.
We understand how important this is. Um, we're right there with you. We're going to do our best.
Hmm.
And thankfully, the people that, were kind of our liaisons and helped us through that process, they set us up for success. They told us pretty much exactly what they were looking for. Their feedback was clear and concise. And so every time we had a meeting where we had to go over milestones or deliverables, that kind of thing, it was always a, hey, great job. We need you to change this one thing because of, the Star Wars design Bible or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it was never a contentious thing. Obviously, we never fought to, have our touch on any of that stuff. It was, we wanted it to feel and look like a Star Wars game, start something within the universe. There's a really good example that I love to share. One of our guys who was recreating the cinematics, he did his best to recreate the star field from the original cinematics, which were pretty low res.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a really wonderful job. You would never be able to tell, that it wasn't a star field, just black space and stars. And Lucas came to us and they said, we need you to change the star field. Sure. But why? What's wrong with the one that we have? And they said, well, we have this one particular star field that we use that has the right amount of quasars and red dwarfs and all this stuff that is uniquely Star Wars. And it kind of blew my mind. I never considered that a minute detail like that would always be present in these projects. And so they actually sent us the files that were used in The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, their mainline Star Wars stuff, and we plugged it in. So, I mean, you would never know unless you knew, but it's there. And that was just a really good example of the communication and the collaboration that we had with Lucas, and it went great.
That's so interesting, and I have to wonder then, like Shadow Man and Doom 1 and 2 got new episodes, and Quake got a new episode, as it were. Like, any conversations about new adventures with Kyle Katarn or with that IP? It's like, yo, too big. Don't do that. Don't mess with this character.
Well, those games are still considered legends, I guess. Basically, everything pre-Disney is it's in kind of limbo, I guess. I really don't know like the status of how they're treating that stuff. However, one of the cool things that came out of the last Disney press event was the Black Series figure of Shadows of the Empire character, Dash Rendar. They're going to make a Black Series figure of him. So, hey, that's really cool. I hope they do a Kyle Katarn one, and maybe that'll show, depending on how well it sells or what the reaction is, maybe there will be a new Kyle Katarn game or another Shadows of the Empire. I mean, I would just be thrilled as a fan to see that.
Is that a dream project scenario, like Shadows of the Empire remaster kind of thing?
Oh yeah. I mean, the LucasArts games were huge in my house. I played all the adventure games first, and then it was TIE Fighter, Dark Forces, Shadows of the Empire, though I had the PC version, and pretty much everything else past that. All the Jedi Knight games that were done either by Lucas or Raven. It's just, it's part of my DNA.
Yeah, well, I remember a story from one of your interviews trying to sneak the Doom cartridge into the cart with your mom, and she said absolutely not, but settled you for Dark Forces.
That's right. Yeah, the Doom shareware. Yeah.
Yep. Started you down a path, it seems.
Yeah, that box art was just way too badass, and it caught the eye of my mom. So
that's fun, though. That's fun. Do you guys ever, or something? Do you have a preferred like platform you like to play these games on? Like, are you a PC guy? Is it for me? Like, to me, it really suits on a Steam Deck because I just love that portable experience. But I do a lot of stuff on my console too. Do you have a preferred place you like to play some of these?
It's mostly PC. Because there's like this gray area where I get to play the games for work. So I'm like, I'm right here in front of my daily driver. But there was a time a couple years ago that I was playing a lot on Xbox, actually. I got the Series X and
Mhm.
some really cool controllers, and I was like, oh man, it's all wireless. I can like sit on the couch and
Mhm.
enjoy this, and then not also have like Discord messages popping up while I'm trying to play.
Right.
So I kind of split it between, I do PC stuff primarily when I'm working or I'm playing our own games, and then Xbox when I want to relax.
Okay. Cool deal. Cool deal. One of the things I asked you was about working with some of the bigger names, like Apogee, LucasArts, etc. But that's on like the back end of creation side. Your product gets to so many different storefronts with so many different expectations. I'm thinking about like GOG has certain expectations when people go to that storefront versus say Steam,
Mhm.
Xbox's platform, Sony, Switch, Humble Bundle, etc. What's the difference in working with those companies to bring something that people think of as sacred in some of these like legendary titles? Or if they are a Killing Time resurrected fan, they love Killing Time, they want that experience. If they're on GOG, I would imagine it's a little different than if they're on their Xbox or whatnot. Is that a astute observation or less important than it may seem?
Um, I hadn't really considered that. I mean, every platform has their own community that it's safe to say have their own expectations. Like for Switch, for example, there's a lot of people that use the gyroscopic controls.
Really?
Yeah, a lot more than I would have thought, because I don't use them.
Yeah,
I use a
off
pro
immediately.
controller and I play on the TV. I rarely use it mobile. But we've made a conscientious effort to have gyroscopic controls with all of our games, because
Mhm.
it's just one of those features that's expected,
Hmm.
especially if you're doing like a first person game, which is just wild to me.
Yeah.
But that's one. I think GOG reviewers are a bit more critical than anyone else, because they're the real connoisseurs, right? They're the ones
Mhm.
that have always been there, and they've always championed the preservation of classic games. And so when we start changing things, they're often the first ones to make note of that, or to, maybe see it as a negative to some degree.
Mhm.
But all that feedback is really great. And because, like you said, we have our games in so many different places, we get a lot of it. And so we can kind of fine tune the experience, moving forward on other platforms.
Mhm.
One of the ones that I think we've neglected so far have been the DualSense controls
Like
for
the extra haptics they have?
yeah. And we're trying to do more with that now, because it's just that extra incentive for playing on that platform, right? No
Mhm.
other controller can do that on any other console. So you might as well have that, to just appease the base of that player base.
I would think so, and it's one of those, I guess, odd points because those modern accessibilities, having the gyroscopes in the Switch, being on a DualSense 5 or a DualSense, not a DualShock 5, on a DualSense and wanting those haptic responses, uh, or being on the PC and having certain options, are expectations of that audience if you're trying to play the game with modern sensibilities and wanting that classic experience. But it wouldn't occur to me otherwise. And I feel like the bigger your projects, the bigger your scope, the more platforms you're on, the more
Mhm.
you have to consider those things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's like a platform checklist that we have for PC and
Mhm.
Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and it's like, did we implement the achievements here, the trophies here, the whatever it's called in this platform?
Mhm.
It's all basically the same, but it's got different naming conventions and
Mhm.
different rules. I mean, if we're getting into the nitty gritty, it's like, Xbox, their achievements are a very certain size. It's like a standard widescreen size, but on Steam, they're the little square icons.
Mhm.
There's just so much to consider per platform, and even constructing the store pages. It's everybody has their own rules. how things should go. And I know that's not very, like, it's not gaming specific, but it's part of the whole process.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. I consistently have asked you about bigger names and name drop some of these bigger titles, IPs, and whatnot. But then you have other titles that to me is very obscure. Like The Thing Remastered caught me off guard. And then I found out there's this whole community interested in it, which all that much cooler. How do you guys go about deciding what's important, what it is you want to prioritize, what it is you want to pursue? Because 2014, you're shooting for the stars, settling.
Right.
Now your name's out there and people are realizing the value of remasters.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, again, back then, like, we could kind of choose what we wanted. But we had to also go out and prove ourselves at the same time, and maybe take like less than perfect business deals to just like get our foot in the door. But we could more or less get the games that we wanted at our scale at that time. But now we have a lot of companies coming to us and offering projects. So we can kind of pick and choose at this stage. And in the case of The Thing, that was a game that I'd been trying to do for years. It was a favorite of mine when it first came out, and the movie is like in my top 5 of favorite movies of all time. So it just kind of scratched that itch of, Lovecraftian horror, awesome movie with practical effects, a great game that had John Carpenter's input and was actually considered canon. Like, it checked all those boxes for me. And so after we did Turok 1, 2, and then 3 for NBC, it was kind of like, okay, this is one of our darlings, right? We could take it out of the closet for you. Let's see what happens, right? So that was a real thrill to work on that one.
What about picking new projects now? If they're all coming to you, that means you're having to say no if you're only taking on, I think you said 3 to 5 projects.
Yes. So we don't outright say no. It's we can work on it when kind of thing. So I'd say like our next like 2-3 years, it's booked up. There's a lot on our plate, and some of the opportunities are just they're things I couldn't have dreamed of, and I can't wait to work on them, and I can't wait to talk about them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if I wanted to ask you, I feel like I'd have to maneuver that one. Let me ask you this instead. I think success is measured very differently by different people. Sometimes it's dollars raked in from a game sold, the success of getting that game out there at all, to just getting to see the thing you love out there. So interpret it however you prefer when I ask this. What are some of Nightdive's most successful projects? No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. I mean, they've all been, in my eyes, very successful because they set out to do something very specific, and they all achieve that, which is they're out there now. You can buy them for, a relatively cheap price, and you can experience them for yourself if that's something you're interested in. And that's all I could really ever hope for. Now, monetarily, they've all done well enough to allow us to keep doing what we're doing. And that's kind of the other, that's the second thing. If we didn't have that, then we don't get to make more games. And so I'm extremely grateful that we've got the community that we've built up over the years to support us. And, another measure of that success is that these people that love these games, they'll often just buy something because it's got our name on it. And I've been hearing that a lot lately, and that means a lot. It's like, I didn't really know what this game was, but because you worked on it, I know it's going to be awesome. Or I know that there's going to be something cool or different or unique offered here that I might not be able to experience anywhere else. And that's that's the greatest measure of success for me personally. It's a lifetime achievement that I feel like I've earned at the age of 40,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's all because of the original developers. You know, we never forget that, and we always hope that we're paying homage to them and the work and the effort that they put into these to begin with. But you know, getting an email, this is like another thing that just, it always like brings a tear to my eye. Somebody will reach out and they'll just say, "Hey, I remember playing this game with my dad."
Mm-hmm. That's
I'm not
cool.
sure I'm going to be able to continue. I'm already getting worked up here. But it, you know, that's the kind of stuff that matters to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, the idea of, first of all, that's a very moving approach to it.
Yeah. Thank you.
What?
Yeah, that's anytime I think about my dad and playing games, I always get teary eyed because it's, you know, one of the things that we love doing together. So
Mm-hmm.
I understand a lot of people have similar memories of playing with their parents, and it's just a cool thing to be able to do. Maybe spark some wonderful memories too of playing these games for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Have you gotten to bump elbows with any of your gaming heroes as a result?
Oh yeah, tons of them. Yeah.
Shout a name or two.
Warren Spector.
Cool. Oh, wow.
Yep, he's amazing. I've run into him a ton of times at industry events, and it's always a thrill, just like the first time. Paul Neurath was the founder of Looking Glass.
Oh, wow. Cool. I didn't realize that.
Yep, System Shock and Underworld Descendant.
Mm-hmm.
John Romero, Tim Willits. Gosh, who else? I mean, I was hanging out with Dennis Dyack
Oh, wow.
at GDC in March. He did Eternal Darkness. I've gotten to speak with Ken Levine on more than one occasion.
Mm-hmm.
We work with a lot of the guys like that worked on BioShock and System Shock, and
Mm-hmm.
some of the OGs. Like they work at Nightdive now, which is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I think of any more off the top of my head, I'll let you know. But yeah,
No,
like
that's cool.
games like The Thing, we worked with Ron Ashtianti, who is the, you know, designer and artist on that
Mm-hmm.
project, and they all have just such cool stories to tell.
Mm-hmm. No, that really is. I asked you about some of the successes. I'm not using the word failures consciously here, but what about missteps or things that you guys have learned along the way? Because in 12, 13 years time, surely it's been like, whoop, let's not do this again for our
Yeah.
next project. And given the trajectory of the studio, I think it's fair to say we have a net win process so far.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, but there have been some missteps, and you know, one of the ones that we will probably never stop hearing about is Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really go into the details of what happened there, but I will say that it wasn't entirely, you know, due to Nightdive, of how that game was received. It was just a combination of some of the different players who were involved with getting the game out there.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, one of the big pieces of feedback that we received was just that it felt unfinished compared to other Nightdive titles,
Mm-hmm.
and that at the time, this was a couple of years ago, the use of AI to upscale a lot of the full motion videos had a lot to be desired. I mean, the AI technology back then was not exactly in its infancy, but it probably wasn't best suited for that task.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all that we could do at the time with the resources that we had. So it would be one that I'd like to revisit one day and like completely remake it. I think that's what it deserves, and I think that like that was almost what was expected.
Mm-hmm.
People were very happy that the game was available again and that it could be played, but at the same time, it was like, if only we could have gone that extra step to really put that level of polish on it that a game like that deserved, then I think it would have been much better received. But yeah, I would consider that a misstep.
When you say remake, that word might carry different weight for different people. Do you mean remake the remaster, like do it again? Or do you mean actually remake the game?
Like remake the game,
Oh, wow. Okay.
like what we did with System Shock, where we started from scratch and rebuilt everything to the best of our abilities, with the, also the ability to kind of tweak and change things and update things as we saw fit. I think that Blade Runner would be a prime candidate for that. But man, it's a big game. There's a lot of art in that game, and but thankfully we would have the benefit of using the movie as reference, and quite possibly having access to the archive of 3D assets that may have been used in 2049 or something. And this is all totally hypothetical. I'm already thinking ahead, like how would we actually do this, right? But yeah, I think a remake is kind of the territory that game should be in.
Gotcha. Are you more in the camp of wanting to remake games or remaster, or does it not work like that?
It's just difficult because the experience of remaking System Shock was extremely challenging for a lot of reasons. And I have no doubt that if we decided to remake a game again, regardless of what it was, we would do it even better this time. And there would be less, hopefully less bumps and obstacles on the way. But it was a real challenge, and it required a whole different group of people that are extremely talented in developing and making original games. And so, we look at it as if we've got this remake team, and then we've also got the Kex team, which they're specialized in doing the remasters. So while we're definitely more comfortable doing remasters, I think that we've learned enough to where if we were given another opportunity to remake something, we could do it.
Gotcha. Makes good sense. Well, Steven, I feel like we're winding down in the best of ways here. Is there anything that you can tease or that you would want to point people towards in recent memory? I know I'm enjoying some Nightdive projects, like I mentioned, like 14 times over at this point. But is there anything you want to point people towards to check out?
Well, on, I think it's June 29th, which is a Thursday, we've got System Shock 2 25th Anniversary Remaster coming out on all platforms. And I can't wait to play that once it's out, because the multiplayer is phenomenal, and it's a big aspect of the game that a lot of people either don't know about or they've overlooked because of the difficulty in even getting it to run on the old version. So we've been doing play tests across platforms, and we've all been jumping in there, and it's supposed to be spooky and kind of like survival horror with some RPG elements, but it ends up just being like laugh out loud funny.
Oh, really?
It's just a really good time. So yeah, if you played any of the big indie hits that are 4-player co-op horror, you're gonna feel right at home. It's gonna be a blast.
Cool, very cool. And I'll let the audience know, obviously, like a lot of Doom coverage of late, for anyone that's watching this, around the time it comes out. The Doom 1 and 2 collection to me is just an absolute joy. You guys did such a great job with that. To have access to all of those projects simultaneously under one launcher is just fantastic, and I'm just so grateful that it exists, as I know many people are, for the game that they want it to be, like whether it's Dark Forces or System Shock or whatever else. So that's a blast. Steven, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It's always good to talk about old games.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, that is going to be it for us here. Guys, have a fantastic rest of your week. Take care.